talk to animals. Have you ever wished you could talk to animals? Well, you can. My name is Shannon Cutts. I'm an animal sensitive intuitive with Animal Love Languages. This is my 22-year-old feathered sidekick, Pearl Cutts. He never misses an episode. Right now, he's just finishing his evening rice. So those of you who are watching the YouTube series can see a wonderful coating of evening rice all over his beak that he's just getting ready to fling. We have an amazing guest today, Erin Elam, and she is here with Whispering Hearts. She has an amazing background, some very unique and interesting experiences to share. She has developed her own method of communicating with animals. She has a specialization in horses, which I can't wait to hear more about. For those of you who are just joining Let's Talk to Animals for the first time, the focus of this podcast and YouTube series is really to open up a dialogue about this so-called mystical or mysterious gift of talking to animals. Is it something that only, quote unquote, special people can do? And those of you who are on the podcast will have to imagine me doing air quotes here. Or is it something that is available to anyone? There's all kinds of schools of thought on this. The teacher that I've chosen to study with and the animal communicators I adore believe that this is the universal language of all species. It's something that is available to all of us. It's something that is our birthright because we too are animals. And so we're just going to chat about that. Every episode features a new guest, somebody that I've personally handpicked because I admire them and look up to them and wanted to get to know them a little bit. And hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I do. So Erin, welcome to Let's Talk to Animals. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm very happy to be here and I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. So the first thing I want to do before I forget is just mention your website, which is whisperinghearts.net, just to make sure, and I will put it in the show notes as well, just to make sure you know how to get in touch with Erin if you want to learn more about her programs, book a consultation, and experience her work firsthand. Then you know how to get in touch with her. So the first question that I always like to start our podcast and YouTube series with is, when did you know that talking to animals was even possible, that it was even a thing?
It took me a while.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily slow, but it took me a while. I grew up with dogs. I have a brother who is allergic to cats, so we never had cats, but I grew up with dogs. And I just didn't understand that other people didn't feel the same way that I did. My dog growing up was my best friend. My dad had a house in the mountains and we would leave in the morning with a bologna sandwich or a peanut butter sandwich. And the dog and I would hike all over the place and come home at sundown. And I really did not realize that other people didn't feel that way and didn't have that. And then I started riding horses when I was 11. And my parents never had to worry about where I was because I was always either at the barn or at a horse show or at a fox hunt. And I, again, didn't understand and didn't realize that other people didn't feel that way, although I was the only horse crazy person in my family. And it was in my early 40s before I realized that the way that I felt about animals was different. And around that time, I started taking Reiki classes in order to become a Reiki master. And once I began doing Reiki sessions on my own, I started hearing words and sentences and seeing things and smelling things. And that's when I started understanding that there was something coming back from the other side that was more pointed than just an energy exchange. So at that point in time, I started practicing on, I had 4 dogs, on my 5 horses and my donkey. And then as I started offering Reiki to my other friends with animals, it just morphed itself. And quite frankly, over the years as that happened, it really was surprising to me that other people didn't have those experiences and those feelings and those connections. So it's been quite a journey as far as that's concerned.
Well, I can really connect with you because I just turned 50. In fact, it's hard for me to believe that I'll be 51 this year. Oh my goodness, time flies. And it's only just been over the last couple years that this has really started to unfold for me. And I really have to credit the internet for helping me connect with my peeps like you and really start to realize this thing that's made me feel so different all of these years is really one of the most profound ways that we can feel connected to each other and all of the other species that we share this planet with. But man, it takes some brave. And Erin, you tackled it at a time when it was still quite it was more of a fringe kind of an experience. And you know, what was that like for you? Of course, I mean, 4 dogs, 5 horses, and a donkey. I mean, you never even had to like get another client, right? You were so busy. Just you had 10 willing and eager recipients between Reiki and animal communication. Yes. But was it a little bit easier? What was it like being a specialist with equines? And because there feels like there's a little more overlap because horses are known to be so intuitive and so in tune with their people, and they have been used in therapy in various ways. So what was that like for you to kind of introduce your gift and your new skills to your community?
Well, the first thing that happened was I had to get over myself because the other part of my life is I'm a litigation paralegal, and
wasn't expecting that.
It was really difficult. I know. These two dominant sides of my personality are quite at odds. And so it was difficult. Every now and then I still struggle with that a little bit. But like you said, as we get older, we come to a place, and I've lived enough life now to where I'm just not willing to be anything less and show anything less than what I believe in and who I want to be and what I want to talk about. So I have a lot of trouble making small talk if you don't want to talk about the law, and you don't want to talk about horses or, intuition, communication, how we as beings are all on this planet together and interconnected, then I don't have a whole lot to talk to people about anymore. So I've just made the decision that was what I was going to do. And in living here in the South, the wonderful state of South Carolina, there are forces at work that make it difficult for you sometimes to tell your friends and the people that you meet, one of my passions is chatting with animals. Oh, and by the way, last night I was driving home and I had to pull over because this horse wanted to tell me she had a headache. And people look at you like you have lost your mind. And not only that, but that you're possessed by the devil. So yes. I had to let go of all of that. And learn a little bit easier, more non-threatening way to talk about it with people. And it has been a struggle. It's been a struggle for me. And like I said, I struggle with it every now and then now, but I've let a lot of it go. So that's been quite a journey.
Well, I just want everyone who's listening who feels that struggle on any level, whether it be accepting this part of you that's interested in animal communication or interspecies communication or connecting with levels of being and consciousness beyond the concrete and the physical, know that you are listening to 2 people right now who have grappled with that and can tell you. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here because I'm going to, of course, ask you this, but it's worth it. Being you matters. It matters enough to push through. It matters enough to do what it takes. I loved what you said, Erin, about, I'm getting goosebumps because you just so inspired me by saying, you got to a point in your life when you just weren't willing to accept being less, giving less. experiencing less than all of you. And that is huge. So I'd love, this isn't part of the normal first episode I do with someone new, but I'd love to hear a little bit about what you did that helped you find your brave with that and helped you stay strong, because I have a feeling a lot of people that are watching and listening are really going to relate to you. Just one or two tools that have helped you.
The first thing is that my best forever friend, whom I've known for almost 40 years, is willing to have these conversations with me at any time and any place. And she calls me on my BS. So it's very helpful to have people, a person in your life that you can talk with about these things, because whenever I express my doubts, she's saying, "Are you kidding me?" And so I get that validation from her. The other thing that has happened is, as you get older in life, you live through certain experiences. An unexpected divorce. My father passed away at 93 years old, which was not unexpected, but he was my rudder my whole life. And so I sat down for a couple of years and stopped communicating, and I just felt like a shell. So I can't tell you what flipped the switch for me about 6 months ago, but it was like, I'm not getting any younger. The time's going to pass. If you're just going to sit here in this chair and not do what you do and not share what you share, then why are you here? Why are you still here taking up space? It was a little bit more of a complicated process than that. But what happens is, once I got up and said to myself and quietly to the world, I'm back and I'm going to do what I want to do from here on out, and nobody's going to stop me, then your passion starts feeding on itself again. And I had forgotten what that felt like. And it was just a really, really yucky place to be. And so I think once you start feeding that passion again, then it comes full circle. And my trail riding mare, my beautiful Palomino, was very, very sick last year, and we almost lost her 2 or 3 different days. And I had a lot of time to think about life and what my life would be like if she were not here. She's just been my rock. And so I got to the place where I thought, we never know from one day to the next whether we're going to be here in an hour, much less tomorrow. And I don't think that any of us were put here to be any less than who we are, no matter what that is. And I think that's my definition of hell. That to me is hell, is living here on earth and not being who you believe yourself to be.
It's like you went inside my heart and pulled all the words out. I just feel we are so connected. And what you said is so key, that, if we just have one other person. One of my intuitive teachers, Sonia Choquette, calls it believing eyes. And I would add believing ears and a believing heart to somebody. Just one. We don't have to have a whole group of minions, right? Or what they used to call your posse. Right. One other soul who really just will see you, or is just willing to go there with you. And if you don't have that person right now and you're listening, we'll stand in proxy for you. And I promise you, everyone has somebody, and that person is there. Just open your heart and start seeking it. And the other thing is to realize, what is it? There's a quote that talks about, I want to say it was Marianne Williamson, but it's I don't think this was her, but most people aren't so much afraid of dying as of never really having lived. And that definitely, I just lost my father this year. And let me tell you, it was like, and I lost my best friend just a few months before he passed. Wow. And I lost my relationship of 15 years just a few months before she passed. And so there's been a lot of loss, and a lot of living that's no longer getting put off. Let's just put it that way. Because I just can
Absolutely.
feel that sometimes your person is on the other side, and I can feel my dad and my best friend just rooting for me and being like, in fact, I love that you're a Reiki master. I just became a Reiki master, and I'm so excited to meet anyone else that does Reiki. So that's kind of my next question. I guess it's a little bit wrapped into your journey, but it sounds like Reiki and animal communication are very much intertwined. And I'd love you to share a little bit about how you experience that and what works about that combination for you.
To me, it's the same flow of energy. When I'm talking with an animal or receiving information from an animal, communicating, it's the same back and forth flow. I don't know what you believe about Reiki, but I believe that the animal draws that energy through me, and then it becomes a loop. It just becomes a loop, between us, and it flows as long as that loop is connected. And I literally these days cannot do a Reiki session with an animal without getting the words and phrases and pictures and videos back in the loop from them. There is no way for me to differentiate them, and it just happens automatically. Now, I haven't done Reiki with people in many years once I started concentrating on animals, but even back then I was getting the same kinds of information and communications coming back. So to me, it's like once that connected loop is made between us, then the information and the communication and the emotions, and whatever it is that anyone wants to share with me, whether that anyone is human or otherwise, it just becomes a conversation, a dance, and shared in that is the healing energy of Reiki. So it's very difficult for me to distinguish between the two these days. It's a package.
It makes so much sense, because I have felt intuitively drawn. I mean, I'm very, very new as a Reiki master, and the only human I have deliberately, like in person, worked on was my father. In fact, that was what was propelling me through my Reiki training, was that I wanted to help him. And that was also my first experience of receiving very powerful messages and intuitive knowings that there was no way he could have communicated those with me verbally, because he didn't have that ability anymore. And so for me, it feels very intuitive. And for those of you who may be watching or listening and maybe aren't completely clear what we're talking about, Reiki, because of course this is a podcast about animal communication. Reiki, it's spelled Reiki, and it originated in Japan. It's not actually not as ancient as a lot of people make it out to be, but I would say probably the energy is ancient, but the understanding of it, putting it into words, creating trainings and manuals and things like that to help students learn, and distributing those, that's much more recent. And it's a healing energy, as Erin just shared, to ease stress. It can improve connections. It can improve conversations. It can promote healing and well-being. And there's also, just as people can study human Reiki, people can study animal Reiki. This little one got attuned, didn't you? Yeah, I don't know if you're the very first cockatiel Reiki master, but he got attuned along with me for all 3 levels. So, right, because we like to do everything together, right? Yeah, we like to do everything together. He's my emotional support bird. So you've kind of answered this question, but just to make sure anyone who's listening who doesn't understand Reiki, you can look it up. It's really great, and it's a very loving energy, and it's available to all. It's not religious. It's a universal healing, de-stressing, wellness infusing energy. So, or you can head over to whisperinghearts.net or animallovelanguages.com, and you can learn a little bit more about Reiki too. I'll be posting a lot more about it in the coming months as well. So, Erin, the question that I know everybody who's listening is thinking about and wondering about, especially anyone who used to be like me, who has never actually tried to talk to an animal, is what is it like? Is it way different than talking to people? Is it kind of similar? What is it like?
Yeah, every animal has a different personality. They all have a different communication style, just like people do. You know, it just that some of them don't want to talk. That happens sometimes because I begin every session by asking the animal for permission. And I say, you know, your human has asked me to communicate with you. They love you so much, and they, you know, have some things that they want to talk to you about. Would you like to talk to me? And I have had several say no. And then I say, is that a no right now, or is that a no? And I've had two say, no, absolutely not. That is rare. That is very rare because they live in the energetic world. They, of course, they vocalize, but they live in the energetic world. So they are very used to communicating telepathically. And what fascinates me is how their personalities differ. You know, because of my paralegal background, I'm a word person. So I would say that 85% of my communications are conversations. I have friends who are more artistically inclined. They see pictures and colors and videos in their communications. Not that I don't, but it's more typical for me to have what I call a verbal conversation. And I find that fascinating because some of the animals are more creatively inclined and less, you know, word inclined or phrase inclined. So they adapt to the way that I communicate so that I can understand what they're talking about. And I'll give you two examples. Yeah, I was driving home one night after having an animal communication, a Reiki session with a client's horse, and literally driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour, and I heard, I have a headache. And, you know, I was like, nobody's here. What do you mean you have a headache?
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about. So I know. So I pulled over. Luckily, I know how this works. So I pulled over off the side of the highway and just got quiet for a few minutes. And I saw that horse, and, you know, she was like, I have a headache. So then it was late. So I called her owner, her human, the next morning and said, oh, you know, there were fireworks, and she gets really upset and she grinds her teeth. And yeah, she probably did have a headache because that was going on. So, you know, that's what they just sometimes butt in. That's a whole lot different from doing a planned animal communication session with a client on the phone. Those are a little bit more structured because I don't know about how you do it, but when I start the conversation after I get permission, I have 5 or 6 questions that I ask of every animal. What do you see? Where are you? You know, is it nighttime? Is it daytime? Are you outside? Are you inside? So that I can verify for the client that that is that animal. Because if somebody asks me to talk to this horse named Chief in Aiken, South Carolina, I guess you can probably imagine how many horses named Chief are in Aiken, South Carolina. So I got to make sure that I'm talking to the right one. So those are more structured. The other funny thing that happened one night, I've got a 40-year-old rescue pony she's lovely. She's such a lovely being. And I was feeding my horses one night, and I walked into her stall and put her feed pan down, and she looked at me with this look, and I was like, what? And I said out loud, what? And what I got from her was, she said, you are such a hypocrite. And she'd never said anything like that before. Yeah, very forcefully. And I said, what are you talking about? And so it's personal what she was telling me, so I won't share that. But I mean, she just blurted it out, just blunt. because that's who she is. Because, you know, when you're a 40-year-old horse, it's, I think, 105 in human years. So she's like, you know, I call her my crone. She's my wise woman. She's like, I don't have time to mess around and pussyfoot around with you. But the more I thought over the next 24 to 48 hours about what she was talking about, I was like, she's right. And she couldn't say it any other way than that to me, to get my attention and to have me understand what she was talking about. So it's so fascinating to me to communicate with all kinds of different animals. I've chatted with a kangaroo, which was fascinating and so much fun. And he was so young. He was young. He was so playful. But most of my experience is with horses and dogs, domesticated animals, because I do live here in Aiken, where it's a horse community. And so that's a lot of the experience, but the different personalities and the different feelings that come through, the different vibes, it keeps it fresh, and it's so exciting and fun for me.
I think you really touched on two key issues. First of all, is something else I'm passionate about as well, is just getting permission. You know, just obviously your own animals, they know they have you have an open door policy, and you have this connection, but it's just like any other being. You know, most of us wouldn't just get up in somebody's face, especially someone we've never met before, and just start talking, you know, and start talking about really personal stuff too, which is so much of animal communication. And so it is really important to take that first step of being very respectful and setting your own boundaries and deciding what feels right to you with these communications, especially because in most cases, I mean, we may have access, we're doing something maybe live or in person or on Zoom, to the person's nonverbal communication, their facial expressions, their hand movements, things like that, but we aren't necessarily going to have that with the animal. And even if we do, we may not be able to understand what they're showing us through their bodies. And so it's very important on the inside to decide what feels right to initiate these conversations, and to sometimes deliver the hard information to their person that maybe the animal isn't feeling very chatty. And the second thing is to just understand, you know, they're just animals. We experience different personalities. And, you know, when I was very brand new at this, I have a box turtle and a red-footed tortoise and a cockatiel, and I share ownership of a standard wire-haired dachshund with my mom. And so each one of these animals, not only do they have their own personalities, but they have stereotypes. You know, and I had one student I was practicing with, and I said, I'd like you to read my tortoise, and she was, or you could read my dog. And she was like, oh no, I don't want to read a tortoise. That's so stereotypical. They're slow. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is the same tortoise that once wandered away and got lost for 6 days. She is anything but slow. And so it's like really just the way we're being called to do in the world right now with each other, with animals as well, to remove those filters, to remove those stereotypes, to just, you know, toss them aside and see what there is to see, and have a conversation heart to heart, and experience how lively and unique and amazing and wise all of these different species are. It's a pretty cool. You find you make a lot of new friends. In fact, the way I work, I don't need a picture. I don't need to know the animal species, although it can help sometimes. And, you know, I wouldn't be able to necessarily tell you if you didn't tell me what species your animal is. I wouldn't necessarily be able to tell you. I just know I'm having a conversation with a very smart, lively, funny fellow being, which is super cool. So I love that you brought those 2 points up. So I guess the big question is, how has talking to animals changed your life, Erin?
I have, there's so many lessons that I've learned. Probably the biggest lesson as a human being for me is that I have learned to pay attention to what is not said. Sometimes it's what's left unsaid. A lot of times it's, I have a saying, feet don't lie, mouths lie, but feet don't lie. That's the negative side of it, but it's true. You know, you watch what people do. You watch how they move, you watch how they interact, you see if their body language is congruent with what they're saying or who they are projecting that they are. So it's taught me to pay attention. It's taught me equally as well that I have to be present, because if we're having a conversation and I'm thinking about what happened 6 hours ago or 6 years ago, or what's going to happen tomorrow or 6 months from now, then I'm going to miss probably a great percentage of the communication that we're having and what's happening. So I think for me, what it's done is it's slowed me down and had me have to pay attention. It's had me learn to listen without formulating my response. So I just listen. And like I said, I've had to learn to be present. And I think it's my firm belief in this world today that is probably our biggest challenge, because we have information and data and sensations coming at us so fast all the time, 24/7, that we get so used to reacting that we forget that we're here to be human beings, not human doings, not human reactors. We are proactive, and we formulate our own lives and our own choices and our own decisions. And so we have to stop and be present in order to experience what's happening right now, because as I'm sure you know, now is all we have. The past doesn't exist, nor does the future. It's just now.
It's wise words that I truly take to heart. I agree. Being present is everything in animal communication. If you're not present, you've already missed it. And if you're lucky,
Yes.
the animal may send you the same information again, but that's the point at which your mind can just nip in and start micromanaging the process. And so that's it's like meditation with animals. It's kind of that's the vibe. It's like you're meditating with like the best beings, like the cutest, most wonderful beings, and the smartest, funniest beings on the planet. So the next question is, like, just like peppering them at you. You have a book, From My Heart to Yours. You also have, and I know his name is Radar, and I keep forgetting the name, Harness Your Inner Donkey. And it looks like you've got some classes too. So what advice do you have for someone who wants to start talking to animals, who wants to just experience that? And then along with that, can you tell us how you work with newbies? Like, just pretend I'm a newbie for the sake of argument, and you could just what do I do? Where do I go? What do I read? How do I start? Kind of thing.
Well, and to me, the first thing to do is to learn to get quiet and be present and be centered. Because if you're not in that frame of mind, you're not teachable. You're not open to the passing of information. So you have to learn, and I do believe in this day and time, you have to learn. 50, 75 years ago, people didn't have to learn to be quiet because it was a much quieter world. So we have to learn to stop the chatter in our heads, or learn how to deal with it when the thoughts just keep coming through. So that to me is the first thing. So the first thing that I do in my classes, day one, night one, whatever, is the first thing that we do is we start. I have a meditation called Opening to Source Energy, and it is a meditation that we do over and over and over again in the course and through the classes. And when we start, it takes about 10 minutes. By the time we're done, we can open that channel in probably about 30 seconds. So the repetition of that practice helps it come really quickly. So that's what I start with is the relaxation, the opening to the process. And then to me, I don't care. It's not important to learn about animals' behavioral, hardwired DNA type things, like the difference between a horse and a donkey and how they're wired, and how they
Whoops, I just lost you.
There.
Darn it.
Or the difference in behavior between. No,
Oh, Erin,
are you there?
I just lost you.
You there?
I'm still here. I'm hanging on, but I just lost you. So could you just rewind and just say it because it just broke up?
No. That's fine. I don't think that it's important at all to learn about the different behaviors and things like that of different species. That is not at all important. What's important is that you're having a conversation with a being. And so you have to let go of all of your preconceived notions. It is not at all about religious beliefs. You have to let go of all of that. The only belief that you need to have in order to communicate with animals, well, there's two beliefs.
Darn it.
The belief that you can do, and that is only. So after that, then what? Are you there? You still there?
I just lost you again. So it's fine. We can edit this. So just start again. The only belief that you need to have. I got all of it up until then.
Okay. Actually, there's only two beliefs that you need to have in order to be an effective animal communicator. The first is that it's possible to communicate with animals. And some of us believe that we can communicate with plants and the world and the earth and kind of stuff. So you have to believe that it's possible, and that you have to believe that you can do it, that it is possible for you to do it. So those are the first steps that I take. And then I immediately launch into working with clients. I have permission from some of my past clients to use their animals as test subjects, as exercise subjects for my students. So we do that. And the wonderful thing about that is that their humans are still available to me. So if something comes up and I can't verify it, they can. Or if something comes up that I feel like the human needs to hear, then I make that contact. So to me, it's there's part of it that's more ethereal and telepathic and intuitive, but there's also technique that I think keeps us grounded and makes sure, like I said, that you're actually communicating and contacting that particular being.
Yeah, and that's really, really important, because all of the natural gifts in the world, I mean, when you think about how many years we study our chosen language in school, you know, be it, whoa, I think I lost you again. Are you there? You're frozen, my dear.
There, I'm here. Here.
Okay, I'm just
waiting.
We're
both frozen now. Are you there?
Yeah, okay. I am here.
Okay.
Waiting for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So so what I was saying is whoops, there you go again. Okay. We're going to wrap it up. Don't worry. We're almost done.
Okay.
So, okay, let me just remember what I was saying. Oh, yes. And so that's really the critical key piece. You know, there's one thing to have access to this universal language of all species. There's another thing to learn how to speak it and how to listen. And that's where the technique comes in. That's where practice comes in. That's where learning how to tune. Whoa. Crazy internet.
I don't know if it's on your end or well, you know, I am out in the sticks, so who knows?
Don't know, but that's okay. So okay, I'm gonna make it a lot shorter then. Are you there? Okay, just making sure. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's rough. We're gonna try. We're gonna try one more time. I
lost you again.
One more time. Oh no. Okay. Waiting.
Okay.
Okay. So
yeah, I'm here. I see you.
Okay. So the key really here is, you know, having a little bit of structure around. You may have access to this universal language of all species, but you still need to start understanding how to speak it, how to listen, how to have a conversation. And it's really no different at that point than all of the years you study your chosen language, be it English, Spanish, French, German, Latin, whatever it is. And you learn the structure, you learn how the messages come in, you learn how the messages go out. And so that's really where there's a lot of encouragement. Those of us who have learned how to use, and there's always more to learn, but I'm always going to encourage you, choose your teacher and make that your first experience of honing your intuition. What feels right to you? Maybe Erin feels right to you. I personally don't teach, but my teacher, Danielle McKinnon, is amazing, and I totally recommend her. So anyway, I think that, that we have some internet stuff going on today, don't we? Mm.
We do. We do.
We do. There's going to be a little bit of editing going on here, but all that to say, Erin, I have so enjoyed talking with you today. Before our internet decides that our conversation is over, I just want to remind everyone who's listening, you can find Erin, you can learn more about her. She's got books, she's got courses, you can sign up for Animal Reiki for a session, you can work with Erin with your animals. Animal communication doesn't have to be in person, you can do it over the phone, over Zoom, other communication methods of your choice. It can even be done over email. And so just reach out to her, whisperinghearts.net. If you want to get in touch with me, Shannon Cutts, and of course, Pearl Cutts here, you can find us at animallovelanguages.com. And you can also find a list of all of our podcasts and our YouTube series guests so you can continue watching, listening, and learning. Erin, thank you so much for being with us today and for donating your time to offer animal communicators who may be just beginning a little inside glimpse into the great, wide, wonderful world of talking to our animals.
Thank you, Shannon. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
I've enjoyed chatting with you as well. Okay, bye for now.